Why do we do the things we do? Today, we're diving deep into this really cool podcast. It's called Mind Matters.
And the best part is it's actually based on science.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that might sound a little futuristic, but believe me, it's already a part of your everyday life. We're talking automation bias. And to guide us through this, we're diving deep into a scientific review by Ivana Budisin. She's really gone all out, digging into tons of research on this. But here's the thing. This isn't just some techie jargon for computer scientists. It's about how we all interact with AI, whether we realize it or not, even in everyday jobs, right here in Luxembourg. Think about it. Banking, healthcare, it's everywhere.
It really is amazing how AI has become so integrated into our lives. It's not some far-off thing anymore. AI is already woven into so much of what we do, often without us even knowing.
Exactly. And that's where this automation bias comes in. Have you ever just blindly followed your GPS, even when that little voice was leading you straight into a dead end? Or maybe you found yourself trusting a website's recommendation a little too much, even when it just felt off. Well, that's AB in action, my friend. It's that sneaky tendency we have to over-rely on automated systems, even when, and this is the kicker, even when they're flat out wrong.
One of the things that struck me about Ivana's review was how she didn't just stay in the theoretical realm. She brought in these real-world examples, and some of them are pretty shocking, to be honest. Did you know that governments in Denmark, Australia, and the Netherlands have all made significant errors due to AB? And we're talking serious consequences here. Wrongful accusations, financial messes, even people being wrongly imprisoned.
Hold on, wait. People were actually put behind bars because a computer system messed up? That's pretty unsettling.
It is, and it really highlights the potential for harm when we place too much trust in these systems without the necessary checks and balances, especially in fields like finance, where accuracy and reliability are absolutely crucial. For someone working in the Luxembourg banking industry, for example, these examples are a stark reminder that AB isn't just a theoretical concept, it can have real-world consequences.
You're right, it's a big deal. It's not just about convenience anymore, it's about people's lives and livelihoods. So we've got governments making these big blunders, but what about regular workplaces? Is this something that everyday people should be worried about?
Well, Ivana highlights this one study from the Technical University of Darmstadt that focused on AB in, get this, HR departments.
Like robots doing HR? That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? But what's even more interesting is that the study found that AB is even stronger when the tasks involve emotions, like, say, job interviews.
So even when we're dealing with things that feel very human, like judging someone's personality or potential, this automation bias can still sneak in.
That's what the research suggests. It seems that even in fields where human intuition and empathy have traditionally been valued, we're not immune to the influence of these automated systems. Think about the implications for healthcare in Luxembourg, for instance. So much relies on that personal connection between doctor and patient.
That's a little unnerving, to be honest. You'd think we'd be more skeptical of machines' judgment when it comes to something as complex as human behavior.
The way AI is designed can actually make us more susceptible to this bias.
So it's not just that we're blindly trusting anything with a microchip. The AI itself is kind of tricking us into over-relying on it.
In a way, yes. Think about how those navigation apps are designed, for example. The soothing voice, the clear instructions, the constant feedback. It creates this illusion of authority and reliability that can be very persuasive.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could lead us down the wrong path, literally. But hold on a second, before we go blaming all the AI developers out there, Ivana also included a study by Alain Barkat and Busiak. This was in 2022. And they didn't find as much evidence of pure AD as they did of something called selective adherence. What's that all about?
Yes, that's a crucial distinction. Selective adherence is basically our tendency to favor information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs, whether it comes from a human or an AI.
So it's like we're cherry-picking the data, even subconsciously, to support our own biases.
Exactly. And that raises a really interesting question. Are we truly over-reliant on AI, or are we simply using it as a tool to reinforce our existing worldviews?
So it's like we're not just trusting the machine blindly, we're actually looking for it to tell us we're right.
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to the whole issue. It suggests that AB isn't just about this simple over-reliance on technology, but it's also tied up with our own cognitive biases and how we process information as humans.
And speaking of real-world examples, some of those government blunders that Ivana mentioned are pretty alarming. I mean, families being torn apart in the Netherlands because an AI system wrongly flagged them for tax fraud, that's some serious stuff.
It really is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences that can happen when AB is combined with human error and a lack of proper oversight.
It's like the people in charge just blindly trusted the system without stopping to think about the human impact. Which brings me back to those HR robots. I'm still kind of stuck on that study from the Technical University of Darmstadt. Did those employees even know they were dealing with AI?
That's the fascinating part. Some did and some didn't. The researchers specifically wanted to see how awareness of the AI influenced the level of AB.
So did people trust the robots less when they knew they were robots?
Oh, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But the results were actually quite surprising. Even when employees were fully aware that they were interacting with an AI system, they still showed a significant level of AB, especially in those emotionally charged tasks, like evaluating job candidates.
So even knowing about the potential for bias doesn't necessarily protect us from it. That's kind of discouraging.
It really highlights how powerful these systems can be in shaping our perceptions and ultimately our decisions, even when we think we're being objective.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into that design aspect that we touched on earlier. Ivana's review specifically points out that the design of these AI systems can actually make us more prone to falling into the AB trap.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the developer's fault, but there are choices being made in the design process that can influence our behavior. Can you give us some examples of that?
Absolutely. Think about those little notification badges that you see on your phone all the time. They're designed to grab your attention, to create that sense of urgency, even if it's just a silly game reminding you to play.
Oh, I know those all too well. My phone is constantly buzzing with those things.
Exactly. And it's the same principle with AI. The way information is presented, the language that's used, the overall user experience, it can all play a role in influencing our perceptions and making us more likely to trust the system, even when we probably shouldn't.
So if we're constantly being bombarded with these persuasive design elements, is it any wonder that we fall into the AB trap?
It's certainly a contributing factor, and it raises an important question. How can we design AI systems in a way that encourages more critical thinking from users, rather than just blind trust?
That's a great question. Is it about building in some level of skepticism, some pushback from the AI itself? Almost like a little voice saying, hey, are you sure you want to do that?
That's a very interesting idea, and there's definitely research being done on how to incorporate those kinds of checks and balances into the design of AI systems. For example, imagine a financial algorithm that, instead of just giving you a stock recommendation, also presents you with alternative perspectives or highlights potential risks.
That would definitely make me pause before hitting the buy button. But even with all these design improvements, we still have to deal with our own inherent biases, right? That selective adherence thing is still lurking in the background.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so crucial to be aware of our own cognitive biases and how they might influence our interactions with these AI systems.
So how do we do that? I mean, these biases are often subconscious, right? We don't even realize they're there.
That's true, but there are strategies we can use. For instance, actively seeking out diverse perspectives, challenging our own assumptions, and being willing to change our minds when presented with new information.
It's like we need to train ourselves to be more skeptical, more critical of both the information we're receiving and our own interpretations of that information.
Precisely. It's about cultivating a mindset of healthy skepticism, both toward AI and towards our own cognitive processes.
Okay, so we can't just blame the machines. We have a responsibility to be more mindful, more critical in how we use these tools.
Transparency builds trust. If we can see the logic behind an AI's decisions, we're less likely to view it as this mysterious black box and more likely to accept its recommendations, even when they challenge our initial assumptions.
I see what you mean. It's like if my doctor prescribes a new medication, I want to understand how they arrived at that decision. What factors did they consider? What's the evidence?
Exactly. It's the same with AI. The more transparent the system, the more likely we are to trust it, even when it pushes us outside of our comfort zone.
Okay, so we've talked about better design, more transparency, and improving the reliability of AI systems. But let's be realistic here. AI is still evolving, and mistakes are going to happen. So how do we find that balance between trusting these systems and maintaining a healthy level of skepticism?
That's a big question, isn't it? It's about finding that sweet spot, where we can really make the most of AI's potential, but without just blindly giving up our own critical thinking skills.
So how do we actually do that? I mean, do we need some kind of AI boot camp to teach us how to be more discerning users?
An AI boot camp. That's a pretty interesting idea, actually. But maybe on a more practical level, I think it starts with education and awareness. The more people understand about AI, how it works, what it's good at, and just as importantly, its limitations, the better equipped we'll all be to interact with it in a more critical and thoughtful way.
So don't just take what the algorithm gives you at face value. Question it, think about it in the context of your own knowledge and experience, and maybe even, get a second opinion from a human expert in the field.
Right, exactly. Treat AI as a powerful tool, not a magic crystal ball. It can give us valuable insights and recommendations, for sure, but ultimately the decision-making power should stay with humans.
It's almost like AI is more of the collaborator than a dictator. We need to learn to work with it, not just, submit to it. But let's circle back to those real-world consequences for a minute. Those examples Ivana gave about governments making these big mistakes are pretty sobering. What can we learn from those missteps?
I think the most important lesson is that human oversight is absolutely essential. We can't just blindly hand over critical decisions to machines, no matter how advanced or intelligent they might seem. There always needs to be a human in the loop, someone who can look at the AI's recommendations and say, hold on, does this make sense? Someone who can consider the ethical implications and make sure that the final decision is in line with human values.
So even in a world where AI is becoming more and more prevalent, we still need that human touch, that ethical compass to guide us.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so vital to foster a culture of critical thinking, both when we're developing new AI systems and when we're putting them into practice. We need to be asking the tough questions, demanding transparency, and making sure that these systems are designed to serve humanity, not the other way around.
And it's not just about preventing those huge catastrophic events. It's also about being aware of the subtle ways this bias can creep into our everyday lives.
Exactly. It's about being vigilant, questioning our assumptions, and recognizing that even seemingly harmless AI systems can influence our choices and our behavior in ways that we might not even realize.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of automation bias, what are your final thoughts? Has this changed how you think about interacting with AI in your own life?
For me, it really underscores the importance of being an active participant in this whole AI revolution that's happening. It's not about rejecting technology altogether, but about embracing it critically and making sure that it serves us, not the other way around.
I couldn't agree more. It's about finding that balance between harnessing the power of AI and holding onto our own human judgment and intuition. And here's a final thought for everyone listening out there. We've talked a lot about how the design of AI can influence our behavior, but what about our own responsibility as users? How can we develop the critical thinking skills and that digital literacy that we need to navigate this increasingly complex world? It's something for all of us to consider as we continue to explore the amazing possibilities, but also the potential pitfalls of artificial intelligence. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling inspired to start applying some of this stuff to my own life.
Me too. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
For sure.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what deep dives are for, right?
Absolutely.
So until next time, happy exploring.
Yeah. Keep those brains working.